bringing the people behind our food to life.
The myth of genetic engineering that's been put out in terms of saying this is the solution to hunger is a totally false myth, because there are only two applications that have been commercialized in these 20 years of genetic engineering. One is to make seeds more resilient to herbicides, which means you get to spread more Roundup, you get to spread more glyphosate, and you get to spread more poison. Not a very desirable trait in farming systems, especially since what Monsanto will call weeds are actually alternative sources of food. For example, in India, Monsanto had ads selling Roundup with weeds around a woman's hands saying, "Liberate yourself." But what Monsanto calls weeds is food for the cattle, it's greens for the family, it's medicinal plants. And the spraying of Roundup is like an ecocide of the planet, destroying diversity. The other brand of genetic engineering is Bt toxin crops. You take a genetically engineered toxin from a bacteria called Bacillus thuringiensis, which is why Bt, put it into the plant, and now this toxin is a ready-made toxin, different from the bacteria where it becomes a toxin in the gut of particular insects and therefore only targets the caterpillars. This ready-made toxin now starts to affect butterflies and bees. A Cornell study showed that butterflies fed with pollen from Bt corn had a much higher level of mortality. We've just done a recent study that's showing that soils with Bt cotton have lost nearly 30% of the soil microorganism within 3 years of cultivation. There are reports in India of cattle dying after grazing on Bt cotton fields because, after all, it's a toxin. And if this is happening to animals and bees, what's going to happen to human beings with a lifetime of feeding these toxic foods? There's also talk about producing more nutrition. A golden rice is talked about a lot. Well, golden rice has 34 micrograms of vitamin A equivalent. Real sources of vitamin A are greens. For example, the coriander leaf that we use in our curries, or the curry leaf, they have 1,400 micrograms. So a 70-fold reduction in vitamin A is sold as an increased availability of vitamin A. These are illusions that are being marketed in order for people to hand over the power to decide what we eat to a handful of corporations. This is not being done to improve the food supply or improve nutrition. It's being done to control food, because without genetic engineering, companies could not have patented seed. A seed patent means the right to exclude anyone from making, using, saving, developing the patented product. If it's a machine, it doesn't matter. If it's an aeroplane, it doesn't matter. Boeing makes aeroplane, a local citizen does not. But when it comes to seed, if Monsanto gets a patent right to seed, then a farmer saving seed is treated like a thief, an intellectual property thief. A farmer whose field is contaminated by a genetically engineered seed that Monsanto has sold through pollination or wind, that farmer who is a victim of pollution is also treated like a thief, because when seed becomes intellectual property, the existence of the genetically engineered traits anywhere without the patent holder's permission is treated like theft. This is how Percy Smicer in Canada was sued $200,000. 1,500 farmers of the United States have been sued by Monsanto after Monsanto contaminated their crops. This is putting the principle of the polluter pays into a principle of the polluter gets paid. So Monsanto has control over the seed through patents and then control over the rest of the food through contamination. It's a very perverse situation. It has to change. It's non-sustainable, it's unjust, it's immoral, and the fact that they got away with it for 20 years should be no reason why they should get away with it for the next 20 years.